Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik, Voss, and Loki Season 2 had a special presentation at D23, which actually had some new footage unveiled exclusively to attendees, and putting the pieces together, we now know the opening sequence of the season, confirmation on what version of the TVA Loki ended up in, how the Sacred Timeline is actually getting revenge against Sylvie for her first strike, and how much of the season will include Kang, aka Victor Timely. I'm gonna break it all down, as well as this new Entertainment Weekly image of Kiwi Kwan as a TVA technician OB or Ouroboros, because there are some clues in this image that already begin to explain where things are headed. To best prepare for Loki Season 2, we are in the middle of a Loki Season 1 rewatch where we are discovering all kinds of new details. Like, did you know the Watergate tapes are in that TVA drawer? Or that the Haven Hills hurricane was actually a Category 9 storm caused by 2 storms merging, destroying every Gulf Coast community in their wakes, like Loki and Sylvie do? Yeah, a lot of cool stuff we missed the first time around, so give those videos a watch. Okay, this new footage is what I assume is the opening sequence of the season, unless there's like a flashback prologue showing Victor Timely's earlier years or some other character, but this sequence begins where Season 1 left off, a massive statue of Kang looming over the TVA. So we pull back through a window to see Loki fleeing down a hall from Mobius and the TVA hunters. They do not know who he is, because as we saw with Mobius and B15 last season, they didn't recognize Loki. So Loki goes up to a ledge and he dives out a window, falling, and then landing in the bed of a yellow hover truck. It kind of reminds us of Lilu's escape in The Fifth Element, landing in Corbin Dallas's taxi, but the driver of this yellow truck freaks out and it steers into the statue of Kang, cutting it on its cheek, which kind of feels like a foreshadowing wound that the character of Kang, or He Remains, might suffer in real life in the course of the series, especially considering the 3 leaders of the Kang dynasty, Immortus, Pharaoh Ramatut, and Scarlet Centurion, whom we saw in the Quantumania post-credit scene, all had interesting anatomies and bodily wounds and markings on their faces. Real quick, we want to thank Bloodline Heroes of Lythus for sponsoring this video. Bloodline is a fantasy RPG where you create legendary champions by combining the bloodlines of elves, demons, orcs, lycans, and more to build your kingdom. It's absolutely free to play. Download it now using the link in the description or scan the QR code. Bloodline currently has over 4,000 champion hybrid options for you to create by marrying bloodlines, and introduces new bloodlines every 2 weeks, so there's always something new to do. The newest bloodline are the Tide Raisers, which are demigods of the sea, but my favorite are the Devella, ruthless assassins who became vampires after a cursed ritual gave them a hunger for blood. They're perfect champions for the fall. I'm also a sucker for Lionstone, particularly with the new futuristic looking skin. I love it. There's a ton of depth and strategy in Bloodline, and the mixing of bloodlines gives you a ton of options of how to build your team. The game has incredible graphics and is designed to give you AAA visual experience on your smartphone or your tablet. To get started on a kingdom of your own, use the link in the description to download Bloodline Heroes of Lythus for free on Android and iOS, or scan the QR code. Using that link will get you a special starter pack worth $20 with 1 summoning crystal, 100,000 gold, and 100,000 diamonds. As an added bonus, the first 30 players to reply to the pinned comment with their account ID and their username will receive a free succubus. So don't wait. So this truck crashes into another building with Casey in it wearing headphones, and Loki spills out into this office, and Casey does not recognize him and calls for security. But then Loki looks down at the marble floor and he sees the TVA crest with the shield and the sword, which had been damaged in the result of this crash. But then Loki experiences some time slipping. He's now standing in front of Casey in a later moment when Casey knows who he is. And the TVA crest is still damaged here, but Casey can't remember of a time when the damage wasn't there. So Loki assumes from this that before he was just in the past, before he met any of these people. So Loki time slips again, and he appears in a room with another Loki, but when that Loki turns to look, our Loki time slips away again. Now this Loki could be from Loki episode 2 in season 1, when he started wearing that variant jacket, or he could be a Loki a little bit further ahead from our Loki is now, and that a couple episodes from now we're gonna loop back on this moment. So from all of this, we can assume that the version of the TVA with Kang as a big statue in place of the 3 timekeepers is really a past time period in the TVA's history, and that in that period, Kang openly lorded over the TVA, but then some event changed that and caused Kang to decide to hide and run the TVA from the shadows using the 3 timekeepers as his puppets. And I'm guessing that event is connected to the breaking of that 4th timekeeper statue in the Citadel in the Loki finale episode. Perhaps the event was some kind of revolt against Kang, maybe a lover's dispute between him and Renslayer. She might have been that 4th timekeeper, and she could have led the rest of the TVA rank and file to overturn the boss. And then Kang, in response to this, reset everything so that everyone's memories was wiped, and that instead of 1 dictatorial boss, there is 3 sacred timekeepers. That could have been the point where Ms. Minutes decided to compose that TVA Narrative Commission propaganda video that we saw in Loki episode 1. So Loki's time time slipping, in other words, going back and forth within one timeline, gives him an accidental advantage here. And yes, we should note that this means that the TVA does actually progress in time on its own path for Loki to jump ahead or jump backward within that path, but it also means that whatever the secrets Kang / He Remains or Miss Minutes are hiding from the TVA employees, those are all now discoverable by Loki accidentally time slipping to a past before any of the resets happen. This D23 footage also includes existing trailer footage that's been recut, like Loki and Mobius in tuxedos in an alley outside that Zaniac movie premiere with Loki duplication casting himself, and Sylvie after a shift working in McDonald's in Brooklyn 1982 when she goes to a record store and goes to her home, and we see how the room is unwinding around her. And now when we see it in the footage, it actually kind of feels like the sacred timeline is attacking her, like getting back at her for disrupting it in the season 1 finale. It actually kind of feels like a literal version of what Tony Stark said in Avengers Endgame.
You mess with time, it tends to mess back.
I just love this idea of the sacred timeline possessing its own sentience outside of Kang and his variants' attempts to manipulate it. Kind of like the way Alioth is a sentient creature that Kang was able to tame, since Alioth is kind of like antimatter. Maybe the opposite of Alioth, which would be flowing time and all of matter, is another kind of entity that the Kangs are in kind of a dance with. An entity capable of revenge. An entity like Eon, which is the Marvel deity that represents time. We actually saw its head in Thor Love and Thunder. In this D23 footage, we hear voiceover from Loki as he warns Sylvie that he's seen visions of the future and that if something doesn't change, the universe will be completely destroyed. Now, we also got an update from The Hollywood Reporter about Jonathan Majors' legal issues that stated the actor was believed to appear in about half of the episodes of Loki Season 2. Now, Season 2 is going to be 6 episodes, so we're talking about 3 episodes of Kang. In my breakdown of the latest trailer last week, I discovered Victor Timely in the background of a shot showing Mobius and Loki's plan to send Mobius down that catwalk toward the disrupted TVA temporal core. This means that the good guys will be teaming up with his past version of Kang, and that Victor Timely is actually going to set foot inside of the TVA to help them. Entertainment Weekly also did this fun write-up of Ke Huy Quan's character, OB. Executive producer Kevin Wright said, quote, his job is basically every piece of tech, every computer, everything that is running the TVA. He either designed it or he fixes it and keeps it running. This new image that they shared shows the bottom half of a shot that we started to see in the July trailer. Loki and Mobius peer over the counter, and now we see OB wiring together this piece of technology. This device is extremely important. It's the same one that Mobius carries in other images. We also saw him holding it in the July trailer, and he definitely has this with him as he heads out toward the temporal core in the radiation suit. So what is this thing? It kind of looks like rigged together pieces of the temporal marvel that Victor Timely is showing off at the World's Fair. Maybe that's why they need him, because he has the original blueprints of it, but I'm guessing it's kind of a patch to fix the timeline braiding process in this broken temporal core. And on the label of that device, you can barely make out the words at the top of it, TVA property. Also on the shelves behind OB are various vintage electronics and hardware packages from the real world, like a box reading Mullard, which is a British electronics components manufacturer that formed in 1920. On the right side of OB are some cans for something for cycles, cars, and sidecars. And then there's a big orange binder or kind of box container with a label on the side with the TVA logo and crest. But the question I have for OB is, was he the one who designed that TVA training module that used the multiple choice question about Thanos eating apples? Because the wording of this question I think is the most fascinating detail of Loki, and I went deep into it in our episode 2 re-breakdown. So please check out our Loki rewatches. You know what? Hold on to your butts for a wild season of Loki and in-depth Easter egg breakdowns here on New Rockstars. Please subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars network. You can follow me on all social platforms at EA Voss. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.